On today's bonus episode of The Thriller Zone, we welcome Eric Bishop, author of Ransomed Daughter. And on today's show, we'll discuss both the traditional independent and the self-publishing world of thrillers. I'm David Temple, your host. Time to get into The Thriller Zone. Oh, look at this little bad boy. It's so smooth and sexy and so... Oh, hi, everybody. Welcome to The Thriller Zone. Eric Bishop is in the house.
I'm here.
Going?
I'm alive and well. Talking to David Temple. I mean, what's not to have a good day for right there?
And you look so handsome, freshly shaved and everything.
Yes, ladies.
God. All right, do me a favor. Turn your camera just a smidge so I get a little bit of the body man back there. So I'm a little bit. There you go. Perfect. Right there. Yeah, I got all your books. You're really good. I see you're a Brad Metzer fan, and you're Steve Stratton's down there, and of course Body Man. And
yeah, you got a few.
All right, let's get to the reason you're here. And there's two things I want to throw in here extra, folks. Yeah, Ransomed Daughter. Here's something Eric does that's a nice touch. I'm telling you this for those who are looking to get on the show and so forth. It's not required, but there's a little something extra he does. You send this little one card. It's a postcard, but you don't actually send him as a postcard. It's a nice little promo for the book, and he's autographed it. And then how about here? Here's a lost art, ladies and gentlemen, a lost art, a handwritten thank you note. I love this.
I hope you can read what I wrote, because my daughter is constantly reminding me, Daddy, your penmanship is horrible. And I say, well, Dad kind of thinks he's a doctor. He just makes a lot less money.
Yeah, and it's actually it's past horrible. It kind of sucks. It's really
Thank
bad.
you.
But
I will tell my daughter you agree with her.
No, well, she's sweet. No, but that is a really nice touch. I just want to say that. But by the way, you got to love it when our mutual friend Adam Hamdy on the cover says a short, sharp, action-packed adventure. Now, yes. I want to start with your elevator pitch, and then I'm going to go into some questions. And some of them you might feel like, why are you asking me that? Bear with me, because we're friends. I can ask you point blank questions and you will answer me. And I'm doing this for knowledge, and I'm doing this so that listeners who may be new to self-publishing, which we're going to cover, will get some insights, and Eric's good for that. So first of all, let's start with the elevator pitch on Ransomed Daughter.
Yeah. So what is kind of any parent out there that has a child, what's kind of the worst thing you can imagine happen is one of your children to be taken. Compound that with someone that's taken your child is also asking for a very large amount of money. Don't tell anyone. Don't bring in the authorities, government officials. What do you do? And Ransomed Daughter explores that. Now, it explores it from a person who has financial means to be able to aid in the situation. Mm-hmm. But still, what do you do when your child's taken and someone is going to threaten to harm them? Well, you do exactly what my character in Ransomed Daughter did. Hopefully.
It did make my palms sweat a little bit because, and I have a son thanks to Tammy, and I have grandchildren, and I think about them every day, and I put myself in that place when I was reading this, and I'm like, man, that's just terrifying, and it's the worst nightmare, and all you can think about is I will do whatever it takes to get my kids back.
Right.
That's what really grabs you about this story.
Absolutely. And as a father, I thought about that as well. And another story that I've got coming out next year, I had not a ransom, but I had a situation where I had to put myself in a position of what would you do or not do? And what's the thing that would break you and make you do whatever someone asked you to do? And that was a tough headspace to get into, but I figured it out. And then I got scared that I figured it out. And I said, wow, that's got to be in a novel. So that'll be in Breach of Trust next year. Little teaser.
Now, the book that introduced my audience to you is Over Your Left Shoulder for those of you watching, and for those just listening, it's called The Body Man. Now, I want to talk about that a little bit, because that was a heck of a read. And
thank you.
What I want to split off into is the difference between a full-blown novel and a novella. Now, we all know that a novel is generally 50,000 and above, generally falling around the 90 to 120. Novellas tend to fall in that 30 to 50. So my very first question is, why did you decide, after having done a full-length novel, which you now can do, why did you decide to go with the novella?
Circumstances kind of dictated it almost to me. I had the Body Man out. I was expecting Breach of Trust, the follow up to the Body Man, to come out, if not end of last year, sometime this year. And it didn't occur. I had a parting ways with my publisher, and then I had to make a decision of, well, what do I do? And I put Breach of Trust aside for a little bit so that I could have some fresh eyes to look at it again. And I also knew the way that what I try to tell people is this is not called the publishing charity, it's called the publishing industry. There's a business side of this. And there's also a side of it from the audience. The audience has expectations built in, and not that you're going to come out with a book and then not have another book come out for 4 or 5 years. They expect one normally within 12 months. And I wasn't going to be able to deliver that, which was bothersome to me. Ransomed Daughter was a different set of characters. It was a story I had actually started years ago and written books about Troy Evans and the Omega Group, and they never got published. So I kind of went back into the files I had on my hard drive and said, well, what's really good that I've written that I can put out and that won't take a year of my life to rewrite or to go through that. And I thought, I want to get something short, sharp, something that just kind of knocks people down and go, wow, what a good story. And I kept going back to Troy Evans and Ransomed Daughter. So starting in February, I kind of put most of my mental resources and time, my free time, into putting this thing in a position where it could come out this fall.
Cool. Now, there's a question here that I keep wondering. You were with a small independent publisher before you went this self-pub route. Two-part question. How was that experience? And how are you enjoying the self-pub journey over perhaps a traditionally pubbed journey?
Yeah. It was different than what I expected. And I didn't know my contacts before going with a smaller independent publisher were either people in the big 5, larger publishers, or self-publishing. I didn't really know anyone that went with a smaller group. So I learned a lot about it. First of all, I learned the business side because you're closer to the ownership. There's not layers that you have to go through, and you're pulled into a lot more. So that I really appreciated it because it gave me an understanding of how things work. Then it also made me also realize, and part of what happened earlier this year is I realized, I think with all I've learned, I think I can go down the self-publishing route because there's so much I've gleaned from that experience and just from the last 6-7 years of writing. And the other thing too with that is I wanted to walk this fine line. I think sometimes people get into it and they go, well, I'll just do everything. I'll do the cover. I'll do the editing. It can't be that hard. I'll do the writing. You can't do everything. Some people can, but it's like the 1% of 1% that gets the big 7-figure deals. Same with you trying to put everything out on your own. It's really hard to do and do a good job. So I decided earlier this year, if I'm going to do this and I'm going to start my own company, Bruno Media Publishing, I'm going to stay in my lane and focus on what I'm really good at, which I believe is writing, the story side. And I think I'm pretty good at marketing. Got a lot to learn, but I think I've got the nuances down of how to do it. What can I not do? Don't put me on a computer and have me create a cover because it's going to look like a kindergartner with crayons. Maybe a little better, but not too much better. And don't have me try to edit a book because we might be before even kindergarten at that stage. That could be preschool. No, horrible. So I hired out where I needed to stay in my lane and have professionals create logos and create covers and create, editorial content.
Okay, so this begs a couple of questions. First of all, let's give a little shout out to the cover designer of Ransomed Daughter, who is
Mr. Todd Wilkins.
Such a good cover.
He will be doing other covers for me, is all I will say, because I was blown away. And I very happy to have the Body Man cover, but I thought Ransomed Daughter took it to another level, and I was really pleased with what he did. Yes.
Yeah, we are happy to share his link down below later in the show because he's really found a niche. The other question is, and you were mentioning marketing, which I know is a huge part of the publishing world, and isn't it about the same amount of work? Here's the question I'm going to drill down on as it pertains to novella versus novel. So you put out a book. Let's pretend you're going to put out a novel and a novella. All right. You've done one of those two. Isn't it roughly about the same amount of work? I mean, by the time you do the cover and the editing and the packaging and the shipping and the thank you notes and the little cards that we talked about earlier
Hmm.
and blurbs and all the social media. I mean, you really got the social media marketing aspect nailed. So my question is, isn't it about? Don't you feel like it's about the same amount of work?
No difference. No, absolutely zero difference. The only difference is with the novel, the time it takes to craft the novel, and the time. The other thing too is I've read through this now. I don't know how many times in the last 6 months. So the time factor of going through a full length novel, which could take me 7 to 8 hours, versus this, which could take me two, that's where a lot of time is saved from a just a getting comfortable with this, looking for problems in the editorial phase, even having a professional edit. I was still going through this again this weekend. I didn't find very much, but I found a couple things like, no, that word shouldn't be there. So I
Yeah.
pulled up my highlighter and I highlighted it. I'll go back this week and send the final file up to all the servers and everything.
Isn't it funny, Eric, the amount of time? I don't know. I don't care how many books you write, how many times you read it. It is impossible not to, with every variation. Oh, I'm just going to change that one word. Well, every time you change it, it changes everything. So I learned
Right.
one lesson the hard way. We'll call it Ransom Daughter version 1, version
Hmm.
2, version 3, or I had to finally go to a date like 0091923. Okay, so I know that on 19th
Yep.
of September I'm good. However, there would be times
Same
that I'm
thing.
like, oh wait, there's something else. So I'd have to go dash V1, V2, V3. Oh my
Yes.
God. The best thing to do is get it the absolute, ask anybody, get it the best you possibly can be. I mean, absolutely the best, then hand it off, then tweak it, and then leave it alone.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm quickly approaching that date of I'm not going to read through it again. I'm in my final read through now, and I'm pretty darn. I'll finish it tonight. I'll upload the file. I've got to get Todd to work on a cover for another. Amazon's done. That one's ready to rock and roll. I could have the book out tomorrow if I really wanted to, but we'll wait
Yeah.
till the 10th. A couple of the other services, I have to still get a final file to them for the cover because based on my edits and stuff, it changes the page count. And if it changes the page count, that changes the cover design, which means I don't want a book going out that's got the wrong size cover or doesn't fit. So there's a
Yeah.
million things to learn. And that's why I didn't want to do this years ago. And even earlier this year, I said, do I really want to go down this path?
Yeah.
But I had these stories that had been sitting on a hard drive that I felt like I could not, I felt they were good enough to get published. But when I queried them years ago, they didn't get published. And I said, well, I don't want them to just sit there for eternity and never see the light of day. Going down this path gives me that option that I'm probably going to do a hybrid approach going forward, where I still have works that I'm going to put through an agent and a publisher, and then I'm going to have some stuff that I've done in the previous years that I can put out under my own brand. So that's kind of my vision in the cloud of what I'm going to do going forward.
I said to myself back in the day, I'm going to write 9 books on my own and I'm going to self publish them all so that I can do exactly what you're doing, so that I can
Mhm.
learn every single solitary step of the equation. So writing it, editing it, making the cover, doing the layout for the print, uploading to Kindle, etc. And so I'd know every little aspect of that. And then I'd start understanding marketing. And then I would do the research by going to conferences to find out how to reach an agent, etc. And then on
Yes.
number 10, I was going to launch, which is coming.
Hmm.
So I think the way you're doing it is smart. You're basically taking yourself back to school, and I think it's an encouragement to our listeners who say, you know what, I can do that, because there's a lot of guys that are traditionally published that get on this show and say, David, I'll be honest with you, I'm traditionally published under this series.
Hmm.
However, I do this self pub series on my own.
Yeah.
So they're kind of double dipping and
And
having great success with it.
I was going to say, and it's amazing when you talk to some of those folks and they say, I make more on what I'm doing on my own than I do through traditional publishing. That's the other, and not always the case. One thing I did want to say real quick for your listeners, it's just something that I learned. Actually, Joe Goldberg was one of the people that helped me with kind of the learning what I was doing. He's in my acknowledgments. He was an immense help. Emma Adair was a great help. David Darling. I mean, these
Yeah.
amazing authors that I'm so pleased to know. But for those that are intimidated and say, man, I can't format a book, that's one of the things I need to outsource That's not a bad idea. However, there is a software out there called Atticus.
Yeah.
I think it's $147 if I recall correctly. Um, Literally took me 4 hours to learn the basics, nuances of how it worked, and I've now used it lots of times. Piece of cake, and that's a one-time charge for life. So
Yeah.
all your books can be formatted through Atticus if you self-publish. Well worth the $147. So
So that I can give love to everybody today, I will put a link to Atticus below. And I'm also going to pimp Vellum, because I used Vellum. I've been
yes.
using Vellum since way back in the day. It's out of the UK. It's about twice as expensive, sorry to say. However, they existed when Atticus never existed, and you get
Mhm.
to actually write in the space of what the book will be. So as you're writing, it
Yes.
will, feed the book. The great thing is there are so many, like Eric just said, so many great software products now. And with
Mhm.
AI, it's just going to be a blink of an AI,
Yes.
if you will, and there'll be another one. But the point is, don't let the formatting be a deterrent on getting in, right?
No, formatting is probably honestly, probably formatting is the easiest part that I think most people could do on their own that they don't have to outsource. And you mentioned Vellum. And Vellum, the great thing with that, and it is, that's what Joe uses. He told,
Yeah.
but it's only, if I recall, I believe it's only on Apple
Mhm.
products. So if
Yes.
you're not using an Apple
Your
MacBook,
faux bar. Yeah.
you need to go to Atticus then.
Yeah.
But both of them, yes, I can sing Atticus's praises, and I know Joe will sing Vellum's praises.
Yeah. Splendid. All right. I want to know, is there going to be either a sequel or an
Mhm.
let's just go with a sequel or a series. And would they all be novella series, or would they then series into full novels? Mm.
Great question. And I've thought through this. I better have, or I'm in a lot of trouble. So the master plan is Ransom Daughter will come out October 10th. Um, Late spring, early summer of 2024, we're going to flip back and do Breach of Trust. So the
Okay.
follow up to the Body Man, which I have the rights for, will come back under my own brand. Then in late fall, early winter of 2024, so about a year from now when we're talking, we're going to have back into the Omega Group in Troy Evans' world. We're going to have a full length novel, tentatively titled The Omega Group. Very original idea on that one, and that might change.
Yeah.
Might change. But yeah, so I'm going to go full length novels. I'm going to try to put out 2 full length novels next year, and then hopefully with the idea of have one novel come out a year subsequently. I don't think I can maintain that 2 full novels. The only reason I can do it for 2024 is both those novels are in some form complete. They might need some tweaks and edits, but I don't have to write them completely. And yeah, I want to kind of pivot between, and then it'll be interesting for your readers. So, if whoever reads Ransom Daughter, there could be a tie-in to the Body Man world. I'd like to see if someone catches that. I think a few people might, and I would love to have these characters at some point maybe have a little something to do together in the different series. They're independent books for sure, but they exist in the same time period and world. So let's see
I
if they can dance a little.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of having characters dance across series. I'm seeing that
Yeah.
more and more happen in publishing today, and I think it's cool. Listen,
Yes.
since I know you're on your lunch break and you're doing me a squeeze in favor, so I appreciate that. I do want to wrap with, as I always do, what you've learned so far, because I've been watching your journey
Mhm.
for, geez, I don't know, 2 years now, 3 years
Several
probably.
years. Yeah.
And of course, we always end with the best piece of writing advice. So go ahead and think about what that is and fire it away to my listeners. Eric Bishop's best piece of writing
My piece of advice is pretty simple. If you want or believe you want, especially in the realm, it applies to more than just writing, but we'll keep it in the writing realm. If you believe you have a story in you and you want to write a story, tell that story. But don't start that story. Finish that story. At least get a first draft. You can't fix anything that's not have a first draft. You could start in and edit, but you'll never finish something. So finish a first draft, put the story out there, maybe have some folks read it, and you don't know what might happen. You might have written something that a lot of people are going to want to read, or you might have written something that nobody will ever read. But guess what? You accomplished something very few human beings in the history of our civilization have ever done. You finished a book.
advice.
Congratulations. You should feel like a rock star, even if you're not paid like a rock star.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good for you. And
Yeah.
you know what? That might lead to you doing it a second time if that first one's not good enough. Or the fourth one might. I've got a book behind me that got published, The Body Man. That's book number 4 I finished. Completed books, edited books. It was book number 4. Book 1 through 3 are sitting on a hard drive. Very few people ever read them. It took
Yeah.
to 4 books to get it published. And that's not an uncommon statement. I know big name authors that their 4th book is what, got their name out there. So stick with it. Also, reach out to the writing community. This isn't a lip service comment. I talk to a lot of writers all the time, big name writers and no name writers like myself. And we're all extremely helpful to each other, and we support and encourage each other wherever they are on the path. This is the greatest community, I think, for helping each other out.
Yeah, I would second that beautifully, and everyone who comes on the show says a very similar thing, that this writing community is so supportive. But folks, once again, the book is The Ransomed Daughter. The website, we want to learn more, is ericpbishop.com. Check it out and pre-order, because it drops on 10/10. This show will drop right in the neighborhood of that. So
ebook, paperback, and hardcover will be out on the 10th, Amazon, and then we'll have some other sources as well, but it'll be there, and whatever you fancy, we'll give it to you.
Awesome. Thanks again for being on.
Thank you, David.
Your front row seat to the best.